Riding high on an 82% approval rating, he delivered his first State of the Union address.
Our nation is at war, our economy is in recession, and the civilized world faces unprecedented dangers.
And that's just my first year.
The Iraqi regime has plotted to develop anthrax and nerve gas and nuclear weapons for over a decade.
Who do they think they are, us? According to White House officials, however, all talk of an invasion is premature. They've told lawmakers an invasion would not take place before Election Day, and some lawmakers are concerned that whatever action is taken, not enough will be done to ensure a peaceful, democratic Iraq after the war is over. Democrat Senator Joe Biden argued, quote, "If we attack, we'll win. What do we do the day after? We can't just go in and walk away. I mean, 10 years from now, who's going to fix that mess? Her? I don't think so." That family hates Iraq. The big story this week, Iraq's decision to allow UN weapons inspectors back into their country.
We should be prepared this time to make sure the requirements of the inspection and the destruction, dismantling of these weapons actually happens.
That sounded like typical bureaucratic doublespeak to me. It didn't mean anything.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, "Fool me once, shame on you." If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Mr. President, let me just get specific. Why are we in Iraq?
We will be changing the regime of Iraq for the good of the Iraqi people.
Yeah, I'm not so sure the role of the United States is to go around the world and say this is the way it's got to be. If we're an arrogant nation, they'll resent us.
Let me say this to you. I wouldn't use force.
Meanwhile, President Bush is said to declare tomorrow night that the war in Iraq is officially over.
The war's over, man. Where's your showmanship, your zazz, your vazoomadoo?
So the weapons aren't there, the Iraqi people don't like us. Two big rationales for the war out the window, but at least Saddam's regime had working ties with Al-Qaeda, right?
The Daily Show is projecting that George W. Bush is our next president and will remain in office until 2008.
Couldn't you have said the same thing about his father back in '91?
But President Bush's father made the critical mistake of having a war that ended.
I've got a message for Saddam Hussein. Our president wants to fight you. Right after sixth period, under the bleachers, be there! Bush refuses to back down in pushing his pro-war agenda.
As I said, this looks like a rerun of a bad movie, and I'm not interested in watching it.
We ought to use reason and try everything before resorting to war.
Ted Kennedy is now the voice of reason, and Germany doesn't want to go to war.
You deserve better than tyranny and corruption and torture chambers.
Who wants a representative government?
Bush's message has been very consistent from the get-go.
There's no doubt in my mind that Saddam Hussein has no weapons of mass destruction.
Stephen, whether this flip-flopping is real or not, hasn't the administration left at least the impression in this country that its grip on foreign policy is getting shaky?
We are
Never, ever
wrong.
59%? Who's judging this guy? Paula Abdul?
If I may take you back to May 1st, when you stood on the USS Lincoln under a huge banner that said "Mission Accomplished."
I know it was attributed somehow to some ingenious advance man from my staff. They weren't that ingenious, by the way.
Okay, John, the White House did bring the sign, but it was a two-sided sign.
In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed. We'd accomplished a mission which was the removal of Saddam Hussein.
Of course. A mission. I believe it was right there on the banner all along.
I've got my own personal views of how he ought to be treated, but that's, I'm not an Iraqi citizen.
Look, I'm just the guy who invaded the country and destroyed their army and had Saddam arrested at gunpoint. You know, it's not my call. Officials from the White House's Ministry of Truth are no longer insisting stockpiles of WMDs will ever be found in Iraq.
Are you still confident that weapons of mass destruction will be found in Iraq?
Direct question. Here comes the direct answer.
He had deep hatred in his heart for people who love freedom.
Weapons of mass destruction.
There is no doubt in my mind the world is a better place without Saddam Hussein.
And scene. The White House yesterday released some 258 pages of previously classified documents and memos detailing its internal debate over interrogation policies.
I have never ordered torture. I will never order torture.
So to all those naked prisoners out there, unpile. Spread out.
No, the facts were not being fixed.
There's nothing farther from the truth.
Let me remind you that that memorandum
Happened before
we then went
to the United Nations, or I went to the United Nations.
to give a final chance to
Saddam Hussein
to comply.
and he ignored the world.
And that was the reason why we had to take
Military into combat.
Facing a Watergate-like 36% approval rating, he is on the defensive in part due to Cindy Sheehan, the grieving mother who resumed her vigil outside Bush's ranch in Crawford, Texas, after a week's absence.
Tammy has 4 sons serving in Iraq right now with the Idaho National Guard.
Oh my God, a symbolic mom off!
I got a little extra time on my hands, so I thought I might answer some questions.
You feel okay?
How many Iraqi citizens have died in this war? I would say 30,000, more or less.
Well, it's nice to see the president estimating casualties with the same inflection you used to guess how many jelly beans are in a jar.
Hear the words of Osama bin Laden earlier this year.
That name's one for the old where are they now file. Perhaps the rekindling of Bush's interest in Osama bin Laden is a sign of how far we've come in the last 5 years. We've progressed through all 5 stages of grief. First, there was denial.
He met his match.
Anger.
I don't care, dead or alive, either way.
As with everything tragic, acceptance.
A fella came the other day to the office and said, "Well, are you worried about Mr. bin Laden?" I said, "No, I'm not too worried about him."
And then, for some reason, back to denial.
Gosh, I don't think I ever said I'm not worried about Osama bin Laden. It's kind of one of those exaggerations.
No doubt about it, 5 years is a long time.
The Iraq 5th anniversary pendant. Tell her you'd invade all over again.
As Congress continued hearing details of the substandard treatment of Iraq War veterans at Walter Reed Hospital, President Bush spoke before the American Legion, naturally appreciating the depth of the veterans' anger.
What happens in Washington stays in Washington.
If I were at all responsible for the horrible things going on at Walter Reed or in Iraq, would I be this loose, this relaxed?
The administration's mantra for a long time has been support the troops.
It's not a mantra.
Anyone can say they support the troops.
We will support our troops. We're supporting our troops.
Support American troops.
And I ask you to support our troops.
We do expect those who say they're going to support the troops to support them.
I have come to see with my own eyes the remarkable changes that are taking place in Anbar province.
When you stand on the ground here in Anbar and hear from the people who live here, you can see what the future of Iraq can look like.
A giant, heavily armed U.S. military base surrounded by a bloody sectarian free-for-all. He's a dreamer. Take a prediction by the president of what might happen if we fail in Iraq and replace it with a warning about what might happen if we invade. Let's try it. Invading Iraq.
The Taliban in Afghanistan and Al-Qaeda in Pakistan would grow in confidence and boldness.
I knew it! I knew this mother didn't know where he was going. I know a shortcut through Iraq. Everybody, come on now, just trust me.
I could have used better rhetoric.
He regrets the bellicose rhetoric he used towards Iraq.
It's his choice to make.
He's learned his lesson. He's not going to make that same mistake with Iran.
Iran with a nuclear weapon, it's their choice to make.
Here we go again!